Good morning, welcome back. You are watching Daybreak here on the Arise News channel, coming to you live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Time for us to take a look at what's making the top local and international newspapers, beginning with our sister publication, This Day newspaper. On the front page this morning, very full front page. Let's start with the president, Tinubu, at the Northwest Peace and Security Summit, where he was represented by the vice president. He says, "We cannot achieve security peace without dealing with historical injustices." Declares his government will not slow down until Nigeria is completely safe. Says current security strategies already yielding results as army seeks local solutions to terrorism, insurgency, and also to celebrate 161 years of existence. The leading photo on the front page of This Day this morning is that of the Southern Governors Forum as they met in Abeokuta, where they elected Dapo Abiodun as the chairman, and those are the governors there in that photo. Former Senator Sani says Atiku's visit to Buhari, IBB, Abdulsalami, part of Northern Plot for 2027. Says the plan is to use former President Buhari to upstage Tinubu. Federal government declares health emergency over the cholera outbreak. Above the nameplate of This Day this morning, just in that black strip, that small one there, Otedola acquires additional 17.2 billion naira worth of FBN Holdings shares, now holds 11.64% stake. And just at the very top there, our president says for energy transition to succeed, our vulnerable people must be supported. This was as he hosted Standard Chartered Bank executives. Meanwhile, Moody's new rating gives Nigeria positive outlook. Excited Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, boast about that. I think we have our analyst in the outside studio this morning, Chuks Akuna, Executive Director, Authority newspaper. Good morning, Chuks. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
The Northwest Peace Security Summit held in Katsina State. You've heard what the president has been saying or said there yesterday. What are your thoughts on some of the strategies that the president says they're going to use to achieve that security and peace?
When I saw that the Northwest governors were going to meet in Katsina, I said, wow, what a better time to meet. I mean, what a very good time to meet, because even as a few hours to the meeting in Katsina, bandits struck and killed 7 persons and injured many more. So when the summit kicked off yesterday, it wasn't surprising that the president sent a message, because the Northwest, outside of the Northeast, the Northwest has become the epicenter of violence in Nigeria. And we saw what happened yesterday at the summit. We're talking about ways for northern leaders to close ranks. We saw news featuring in yesterday that the Sokoto state government was planning on dethroning the Sultan. And, it was like, wow, we're talking about a problem and we're trying to create more problems for the zone. And it's good that President Tinubu sent a message through the vice president that saying that he can achieve security and peace without dealing with historical injustices. And when you talk about historical injustices, there are several of them. They are multifaceted. And, one of those issues are the issues of delivering democracy dividends to people. We saw what happened in Abuja yesterday, where the killers of a brigadier general were arrested in Abuja. And, if you saw those who killed him, you agree with me that these are people who are denied or who didn't have access to basic education. Because, you see, if you do not train a child, you do not give a child formal education, chances are that these children will turn out to be street children, and in the next 15, 20 years, these same children will turn out to hunt us. When President Obasanjo launched UBEC in 2004, the aim was to provide basic education to every out-of-school child. But what has happened today? We see Nigeria still ranks among the world's highest, among the world's topping the chart number of out-of-school children globally. And anyhow you say it, if you deny a child right to education, to basic education, not just basic education, quality education, chances are that these children in the next 15, 20 years, they'll come back as a Frankenstein monster to haunt Nigerians, to haunt us. And that's the problem. If you look at all the people who have been arrested for armed robbery, for arson, for kidnapping, so basically these are people who didn't have access to education. So when we talk about education, giving education a priority in Nigeria, it's a win-win for us. But when we feel that education should be only for the elite, and then we leave out the children of those who are not fortunate enough to have access to funds, these are some of the problems we're facing. Because as we speak, more than 90% of our resources, in terms of security, is going to banditry and terrorism. And this is a very, very sad commentary, for us as Nigerians.
Indeed. Dr. Akuna, a lot of talking points from that summit yesterday. While the president says that some of the strategies put in place are still yielding results, you have, and that's still on the front page of this day, you have the army saying that local solutions are needed to fight terrorism and insurgency. But you also have the Sultan of Sokoto, who spoke at the summit yesterday and said it will take decades for us to fix this. That's if we eventually fix it. And those were his words. That's quite a prolonged timeline, Dr. Akuna, don't you think so? And I recall that it was just in February of this year that the president and the governors, during an emergency security summit meeting at the presidential villa, mulled the idea of establishing state police. That was in February. We are in June. Where exactly are we? So when you look at all of these issues with the army saying, it takes local solutions, and the Sultan saying it will take decades, is it a question of we don't know what to do, or we're just dancing around the issues?
If you know the Sultan is one Nigerian who shoots straight from the hip. He doesn't mince words. And apparently that is part of the problems he's having with the Sokoto state government or maybe the federal government. But that said, when I saw that story, for somebody who spent the better part of a major part of his life in the military and coming from Sokoto state, Sultan has served in several parts of Nigeria. He served outside of Nigeria. He's been defense attaché to Pakistan and I think to one other country. So, and I'm sure as a traditional ruler, because you see, we have to ask ourselves this question: what roles do we want for the traditional rulers? Sultan, who has been in the epicenter, he's fought in several battles outside of Nigeria, telling us that it's going to take decades to stop this banditry or insecurity. I'm sure the Sultan knows what he's talking about. And the earlier we listen to people like that, the better for us all. Because you see, it's not enough to come and paper over these issues. Every day we want to make ourselves happy and say that we killed 50 terrorists, we killed 20 terrorists. I mean, the biggest military force in the world is the U.S. The U.S. went to Afghanistan and they left tail between legs. They went to Iraq. They left Iraq without achieving the aim for which they went there. They went to Afghanistan. The same thing. Russia, at the height of its military power, the USSR invaded Afghanistan. And after about 10 years, they left there without achieving results. So what does that tell you? It tells you that what the military is saying, the military knows what it's saying, but for local solutions, we keep acquiring arms, we keep acquiring ammunition, and insecurity will keep rising. Because for people like Sultan to have said that it will take decades to stop this, we have to really introspect and ask ourselves this question: what needed to be done? What do we have to do to stop this? I mean, if we take, because see, from 2009 till date, how many years is that? That's about 15 years. We've been fighting insurgency in the Northeast. Has it ended? No. So I think the Sultan is right on that it will take decades for us to stop that. But then we have to initiate a deliberate strategy So, okay, what do we want? How do we tackle this problem? Like I said earlier, we have to start with basic education. Because most of these recruits, most of these persons who are recruited are those, I mean, we've seen the police and the military parade them on national TV. Most of them don't lack basic education. So these are some of the issues. And then also the issue of allowing traditional rulers play more role in our democracy. It's very, very important. So as long as we allow governors appoint and fire traditional rulers, you see, we erode this institution, which I'm very happy about what the Vice President said yesterday, that the Sultan is an institution. You see, there's always a tendency for us in Africa to look down on those things that are ours. Look at the whole of Europe. The whole of Europe is a constitutional democracies. They have they have monarchs. So if you look at, but we tend to say, okay, when the British monarch comes to Nigeria, you see, we roll out the red carpet. We want to pose with them, and sometimes we forget that some of these monarchs are not even bigger than some of our emirs and obas and igwes here. If you look in terms of influence, look at countries like Denmark, countries like Finland. What is the population? But they have a king. They have kings there, and they have monarchs there, and they respect these monarchs. So it's high time we started looking inwards to say, okay, what role do we play? I mean, we've done these things over and over, and they seem not to be yielding results. So what do we do now? How do we bring in our royal fathers to help us tackle some of these issues bedeviling Nigeria?
All right, still on this day, well, you have the story on FG declaring health emergency over cholera outbreak. Some story, we'll probably look at that. You'll probably get you to look at that in more detail. I think Punch has it where 107 LGs are affected, 1,528 or something dead. But Sani, former Senator, Atiku's visit to Buhari, IBB Abdul Salami, part of Northern plot for 2027. He says the plan is to use Buhari to offstage Tinubu. The media raid of Atiku says that Atiku was simply paying a condolence visit to the late governor, late governor of Kaduna State, that there's nothing in it. But he's alleging that Abdul Salami is involved, former head of state, IBB is involved, and all that. What sense do you make of it? Should the presidency take it seriously? How will they achieve this? I mean, if, for example, what Sani is saying holds water.
Yes, I think Senator Sani did not say anything new. Anybody with a discerning mind, we know that for these guys to visit Buhari at this time. And don't also forget that Buhari, but the question is, did Buhari actually back Tinubu to become president? The answer, it's obvious. But then, so when Tinubu was outside, it was difficult to stop him. So you can imagine what's going to happen now that he's the commander-in-chief and at the helm of affairs. These are some of the issues. And then some of these leaders, too, you have to ask yourselves the question. Look at Buhari was head of state for he was head of state for about 18 months, and then he became president for 8 years. What has Katsina got to show for the Buhari presidency? These are some of the issues we should ask ourselves. You see, we have people who just want to grab power for the sake of answering those titles, commander-in-chief or governor of this. And at the end of 8 years, they have nothing to show for it. Katsina is one of the worst hit states in terms of insecurity. And during Buhari's tenure, Katsina was overloaded, if you allow me to use that word, if you permit me to use that word, was overloaded with military installations. But what have been the benefits of these military institutions? Like I said a few days ago, villagers were attacked, and hardly any day passes without you hearing of one killing or the other in states like Katsina. And these are, Katsina has had more than its fair share of producing the president. Yar'Adua was the president of Nigeria, and he was also from Katsina State. So it's not about the who doesn't make the monk. We all know that. But the issue is about good governance. You see, it doesn't matter where you come from. The issue is, are you able to deliver? Have you been able to deliver? We have, most of these people who are making noises and, criticizing Tinubu and the rest. You also ask yourself, what did they do when they were in power? That's one of the questions you have to ask yourself. Apart from people like IBB, because IBB, as we speak, there's hardly any president who has done as much as IBB has done in terms of building Abuja. So all that we've been doing is laying bricks on what the foundation IBB laid for Abuja. But then that said, you see, what will it benefit the North? Because people are already asking questions. You know, for the number of years the North has held sway, has held power, even during the military, when there was no National Assembly, when they ruled by military fiat, what did they actually benefit? Look at the states that have produced the heads of state in Nigeria. In what ways are they different from my village in Abagan in Anambra State? There are some of the issues. Sometimes you go to some of these places and you ask yourself, I mean, was their presidency or their governorship actually a blessing or a curse? So I think, and I'm happy that some people from the North, you know, people are beginning to ask questions. You know, you have a person who becomes governor for 8 years, and after 8 years, all he has to show for the governorship is, acquiring properties abroad. It's good that, I mean, you can't stop politicians from plotting. I mean, that's their trade. And I'll call that visit a visit of strange bedfellows, because you have someone like Tambuwal, who we all know has his eyes set on the presidency. We have somebody like Atiku, and we all know that Atiku, he believes that one day he will be president of, he's aspiring to be president of Nigeria someday. He nearly got to become president of Nigeria, but for some factors. So Atiku, I know, is still very much in the race. Tambuwal is still very much in the race, and these two men are in the PDP. So how that pans out is going to be very, very interesting for, the next coming years.
Very interesting roundup, Dr. Acuna. Let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper and some of the stories making the front page. The big story, NCDC declaring cholera emergency, sets up measures. Nigeria has now recorded 53 deaths, 1,528 suspected cases in 31 states. Death toll in Lagos hits 29, 30 patients on admission. The leading photo, Southern Governors Forum. Rivers crisis, just under that photo, ex-local government chairpersons flout police order, stage protest. Boko Haram abducts High Court judge wife and 2 others. On minimum wage, Labour is telling the president approve 250,000 naira demand to match inflationary trend. At the top there, my government will not slow down until insecurity is eliminated, Tinubu vows. Shetima to Sokoto governor guards Sultan jealously. He is an institution. First of all, let's focus on the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention declaring cholera emergency and setting up those measures. The sheer scope of this outbreak, we have this disease that's often associated with poorer infrastructure, inadequate sanitation, and you have in Lagos State, there's been a decision the health commissioner not to administer cholera vaccines despite the rising cases. Now, this stance might seem practical maybe from a public health perspective, but is it a right call amid this high-risk environment? We know it's been raining. The rainy season exacerbates the spread of this waterborne disease, Dr. Acuna.
Yes, to start with, I needed to correct this. I'm not a doctor. My name is Chooks Acuna, and I'm very, very happy with that. But that said, you see, there's this saying that a stitch in time saves 9. But then, if you know the typical public officer in Nigeria, no, he doesn't want a stitch in time. He wants to have 9 stitches. And that's why when you have, even on our highways, when you have a pothole, nobody wants to fix that pothole, because in their estimation, should you fix that pothole? How much will be budgeted for that? If you ask for $1 million to fix a pothole, they will say no. So why not allow that pothole develop to become greater, so that they can have more money to spend? So that's the problem. I recall when the whole world began issuing warnings about COVID-19. But our government at the time, headed by President Buhari, pretended to be deaf to the warnings of the WHO until COVID-19 actually came to birth in Nigeria. So it's typical of Nigerian public officers, I remember, the media has been shouting, we've been shouting ourselves from rooftops, cholera outbreak, cholera outbreak, cholera outbreak. So I'm surprised but disappointed that it's taking the NCDC this long to actually come out to declare an emergency on this epidemic. But we have to ask ourselves, there's no smoke without fire. How is cholera transmitted? We all know how. And these factors are missing. How many states in Nigeria actually run pipe-borne waters? How many states you have pipe-borne waters? We make do with bottled water or sachet water, popularly called pure water. And then we all know how much this costs now. So, and then even at that, access to pure water, which used to be for commoners, it's now difficult for most people. Most people cannot buy a bag of pure water. They can't even buy a sachet of pure water. They would rather spend the money on food that's become that become out of reach of the poor and of the rich. So it's typical of Nigerians to actually wait until the bubble bursts so that we can start, this emergency. I mean, what's emergency about the move by NCDC? At a time when the media was shouting, it was on the front pages, we were reviewing papers, cholera outbreak in Lagos, XYZ number have died. What did they do about that? So it's taking them this long to do that. But, typical of Nigerians. But like you also spoke about the River State crisis. You see, I'm happy that President Tinubu talked about the injustices of the past. You see, let us talk about that of the present. You see, on Sunday night, the police, there were reports that Nolge in River State was going to embark on a demonstration against the police for stealing their secretariat. And the police high command issued a statement, banning all forms of possession. But we also saw yesterday what happened in River State. And, this gives oxygen to the fire of speculation that the police is working hand in glove with a particular political figure in River State. And this is very, very sad. President Tinubu is talking about injustice of the past. As we speak, what measures is he taking as the president and commander-in-chief to rein in some of his appointees? We've seen what's happening around River State. We saw, from video clips of former local government chairmen or those, the tenures ended, confronting police officers, carrying placards. And you ask yourself, what really is going on? Is it a case of they being sacred cows? And then we imagine what would have happened had the Nolge not restrained himself from embarking on protest yesterday. I mean, what is the police doing at the secretariats? Is Governor Fubara the first governor to appoint caretaker committee chairman? Even the person in focus, Nyesom Wike, before he was sworn in, Rotimi Amechi held council elections and local government chairmen were duly elected. But what happened? As soon as Wike came, Wike went to court. And, based on the flimsy excuse that one court injunction was not adhered to, an injunction restraining Amechi from conducting the elections didn't hold. So they fired all the local government chairmen and appointed caretaker committee chairman. We're not saying two wrongs don't make a right, but the issue is that, what is good for the goose should be good for the gander. See, the police has not shown neutrality in the case of River State, and I must be very, very frank. It happened in Bayelsa. When in roll up to November last year elections in Bayelsa State, the governor kept shouting, why would the police, move policemen, hundreds of policemen from around the country and move to Basambri in Bayelsa State? The governor kept shouting, leave my state alone. Are you doing this because of the upcoming elections? Then look at what happened in River State. What happened yesterday in River State is a huge embarrassment to the police and to the president, because you are saying that you have no hand in what's happening, but then the police, bear their fangs when supporters of Fubara, or those seem to be loyal to Fubara are involved. And then when those who seem to be sympathetic to Wike are involved, they play deaf. This is not fair. And this kind of injustices that are making people lose confidence in law enforcement agencies. Law enforcement agencies should be seen to be, because they are funded with public funds, they should be seen to be fair to all. You don't tell people not to embark on protest, and then they say, okay, they're not embarking on protest. Then another group embarks on protest, and then the police. I saw several police officers, in fact, literally handing the protesters pro-Wike council chairman candies, if you are, an ice cream, Try doing that. This is very unfair. And you see, like I said earlier, it is kind of things that make people talk about the injustices in the land. And it's kind of things that make people lose confidence in our law enforcement agencies.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akuna, for that elaborate analysis. The southern governors, the southern region of Nigeria has new elected officials in the person of Dakpa Abiodun and Governor Soludo, and that's on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. We'll talk more about that when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the Paper Review on Daybreak here on the Arise News channel. We still have with us Chuks Akuna, who is the Executive Director, Authority newspaper. Thank you so much, Chuks, for staying with us at this time. And before the break, we had looked at other papers, including the Northwest region holding a security summit yesterday, where we've seen a lot of talking points making the front pages today. But as they were all holding their summit, we also had the Southern Governors meeting yesterday. And from that meeting, the front page of the Nigerian Tribune focuses on that story. We do now have Dakpo Abiodun, who is the governor of Ogun State, who was elected the chairman of the Southern Governors Forum. And he has unveiled a 5-point agenda, the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. The governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Soludo, became the vice chairman. And the 5-point agenda, Chuks, as highlighted by Governor Abiodun, includes security, infrastructure, food security, agriculture, transportation, and devolution of powers. Any surprises there from that meeting?
No, of course, none. Because, but sometimes when I see these governors meet, I chuckle. Because we saw what happened at the Asaba Declaration, where the same southern governors met and agreed that power should shift to the south. What happened thereafter? Some of the governors who are Governor Okowa, who hosted the event, later went to become running mate to Atiku Abubakar. And you ask yourself, most of these regional alliances or meetings, what really do they achieve? What do they really achieve? We've had the Southwest governors come up with Amotekun. What became of Amotekun? We had the Southeast governors come up with Ebubago. What became of Ebubago? These are some of the issues we have to ask ourselves. You see, it's a time for us to actually talk in our differences and actually seek to build a country called Nigeria. The moment we fail to build a country called Nigeria, we talk about Southeast Governors Forum, Southwest Governors Forum, which I don't have a problem with. But the issue is other regional bodies that have come up in the past, what have they really achieved? Some of these governors only use this to further their political nests. We saw that happen a number of times in the past. You're chairman governors forum, you're this, you're that. You spoke about you spoke about what happened yesterday in Katsina, where the Northwest governors met. The last time they met, we also saw what happened. Some governors refused to attend. Of course, that was during President Buhari's tenure. Some governors refused to attend. Some governors felt that they were not part of that meeting, or some of. You see states that are bordering states. They have borders. They're not even. There's no alliance. There's no closeness. Among states that share borders, let alone a region. Like I said earlier, what became of Amotekun, the Southwest security outfit? Initiated by the Southwest, launched with so much fanfare by the Southwest governors. It seemed to have lost steam. The Southeast, what became of Ebubago? It became politicized. Because as long as we do not, let us try as governors to foster good governance in our states. So other things will fall in place. It's not, this issue of, not this, south this. It has not helped anybody. We've been doing this since 1960, and it has not helped matters. Mutual suspicion. Even the southeast and the southwest, there's still mutual suspicion. The south, there's still mutual. There's suspicion amongst them. So fine, of course, it's good for governors to meet. There's nothing wrong with that. But then, when they meet, they should also think about, put the country first. That's what I feel.
When you talk about Ebubago being politicized, doesn't that point to the fact of the dangers of what you call state police if it eventually comes on steam. But that's not where I'm going to. If you look at the Punch front page, Dangote refinery, operators seek LG intervention as marketers opt for fuel import. This doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. Dealers slam IOC's NMDPRA, the regulatory authority, silent amid dirty fuel importation accusation. Now, this is on 4 fronts. One is the IPMAN. Second is the NMDPRA. The third is the IOCs. And of course, the fourth is Dangote itself. Now, IPMAN, they're accusing Dangote of high price, especially in aviation, so they can't buy, so they rather import. And then they say this, Dangote says this importation that they're importing cheap fuel and then dirty fuel. NMD, this acronym is so long. Let me just call it DPRA, is being accused of still issuing licenses for importation. And then the question of IOCs selling to Dangote at a cutthroat price. How do we really tackle this thing? I mean, this is just a baby that's come on steam that could help Nigeria, but it seems that rings are being run around it, and there seems to be no headway.
Private investors confront private investors in Nigeria. Apart from, when Dangote wanted to delve in, move into petroleum refining, some of us wondered aloud what Dangote was looking for. He's done pasta, he's done rice, he's done sugar, he's done salt. Why petroleum when the whole world is moving away from fossil fuels? But you see, then Nigeria seemed to be happening to Dangote. Look at people like Innocent, who is assembling the first private car assembly plant in Nigeria. How much patronage is he enjoying from government? That's the issue. You see, because you look at most of our companies that have closed down because it's cheaper. Importers make more profit. Marketers make more profit when they import because the cost of production. And don't also forget the Nigerian factor. If you employ Nigerians to work for you, you really have to, aside all the shenanigans of operations, you have to battle what you call the Nigerian factor. It's really a problem, and that's why several investors are pulling out of Nigeria. They're divesting from Nigeria because it's cheaper for them to manufacture elsewhere and then export to Nigeria, and it's a problem because the government really has to intervene. The government really has to sit and address this brass tack. What does the government intend to do with Dangote refinery? How does the government intend to support Dangote refinery? Because whether we like it or not, this African richest man who has set the ball rolling by investing in the largest refinery in Africa, the first, one of the biggest refineries in the world. So you ask yourself, what are the interests of our regulators in the petroleum industry? These are some of the issues. Because, you see, if we do not put the country first, like I said, we're going nowhere. Imagine a man like Dangote, he's been yelling, he's been raising the alarm. So for someone like Dangote to raise the alarm, and virtually throwing his hands in the air, for such an investment, you can imagine what the man on the street, what the average investor in Nigeria is going through. You see, you have no government support. You have, the government at drop of a pin, the government of the day, throws you under the bus. So, and when someone like Dangote is complaining about his investment in Nigeria, it sends very dangerous signals, globally. For those who might wish to, happily, nobody's talking about foreign investments anymore because even the ones we have, they are leaving. So, and for those who took the brave step, like Dangote did, the brave step to actually, build this refinery, the optics from Dangote is not encouraging, and it's going to have untold damage to our reputation as an investors having, globally. Because people will say, if Dangote, who's from Nigeria, Africa's richest man, is going through so much, because he decided to build one of the largest refineries, I think the largest in Africa, what chance do they stand? So these are some of the issues.
Dangote refinery is facing betrayal from within. The very market the refinery aims to serve, undercutting his efforts for cheaper imports. You have price war going on, supply chain sabotage, and then you have the regulatory side, the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, accused of indiscriminately issuing those import licenses for cheaper. We know they're having a meeting today with oil marketers and local refiners. Arise News will be there to bring us all the updates of what's discussed in that meeting. Let's take a look at Daily Independent and the stories that's making the front page. Their big story this morning is on cholera outbreak, death toll rising to 53 across 31 states, cases soar to 1,528. But the story I want to take a look at is at the bottom there in black. The Senate is insisting on probing Buhari's 30 trillion naira ways and means loans. They say, look, we've not forgotten, we are still going to embark on this financial inquiry. And this probe is at the heart of fiscal responsibility and transparency. The ways and means designed to bridge that budget shortfall basically ballooned beyond its intended limits. Mr. Akuna, what are we witnessing? Is it a genuine quest for truth, or is it just a way to appease public scrutiny? Because people have been asking, what's going on with this 30 trillion naira ways and means?
Yes, I also want to raise eyebrows at why the Senate is decided to probe at this time when, you know, on the other hand, they're also approving loans for Tinubu. So, I mean, we saw what happened in Kaduna State and what's happening in Kaduna State now. When Kaduna State former governor, the immediate past governor, was going to seek foreign loans, Ubasani, who is the governor today, was a senator. I think he was chairman on the Senate Committee on Foreign Loans. He was one of the most vocal supporters of El-Rufai. You know, he said that they should hold. In fact, at a point, he said people should hold him accountable should El-Rufai fail to utilize those loans for the reason for which they were obtained. But today, the same stand is going through the back door to probe El-Rufai, trying to mess up El-Rufai. So, like I said, the same Senate that is seeking to probe Buhari's 30 trillion ways and means loans is also, on the other hand, still approving loans for Tinubu. So what we're to expect is that in the next 3-4, should we have, or after Tinubu's tenure, another Senate will come and say, okay, let us also probe these loans that was obtained under Tinubu's administration. That's it. You see, two wrongs don't make it, and I would never support. I mean, it's wrong to support malfeasance, by anybody, any public officer. But then the issue is that we have to, draw a line between probe and witch hunt. We all know the role. We all know how Buhari, assisted Tinubu to become president. I say that tongue in cheek. And there are also people who feel that Tinubu is out to seek a pound of flesh, or if not Tinubu, his supporters. And you see, there's a very, very serious matter that's going on, and I think it made the lead story in a Daily Trust. Because you see, if care is not taken, I was Chief Press Secretary to Ngige in 2003 when he was kidnapped. And the story at the time was that it was Atiku that foiled that coup, and that Obasanjo looked the other way, and Atiku foiled it, and that was one of the reasons, this turned sour, and the relationship between Obasanjo and Atiku turned sour. I want to take us to what's happening in Sokoto State. It's very, very important, whether we like it or not, because it has now, this matter has spilled to the presidency. We saw what Vice President Shetima said yesterday. He more or less chided the governor of Sokoto State, and of course the deputy governor was there at the forum. And okay, imagine Sokoto State is one of the worst hit states in terms of insecurity in the northwest. Just a few days ago, when the plot was being hatched to dethrone the Sultan, you saw a very sad news of a deputy vice chancellor in a federal university was killed by bandits just because he was traveling. You see, a government that fails to protect the lives and life and property of a citizen has failed. And that is the basic function of government. So if a government, should the government leave this issue of protecting life and property and delve into who supports who or who doesn't support who? In fact, when that story first broke yesterday, I think Murik, the Muslim rights group, raised the alarm that the governor was set, and plans are afoot to dethrone the Sultan. I wasn't surprised because there was a viral video, that trended a few months ago where the Sultan came to Eid praying ground and was greeting, shaking hands with people. And the governor, former governor, Senator Wamaku, he refused to stand up to greet the governor. The Sultan, His Eminence. And also the governor was by his side, and it was he raised a lot of eyebrows. What's actually going on in Sultanate? We all know that Sultanate is about 220 years. Yes, I think it's about 220 years. It's one of the most respected traditional institutions in Nigeria. And I was happy when the vice president, chided the governor. Yes, you see, it's our own. The Igbo say, "Nkai bụ nkai," ours is ours. We cannot be rolling out red carpets to receive the Prince of England, and his wife. And then we have the Sultan here, we have the Oni of Ife, we have the Oli of Wari, we have the Obi Onitsha and the Awujale of Egbaland. And when Awujale of Egbaland was given the second national, the GCFR by GCON by President Tinubu, a lot of people raised eyebrows, but I wasn't surprised. You see, we tend not to respect our own. You see, we always look out for exotic things. Should the king of Denmark visiting Nigeria, you see, we all come out to roll out the red carpet to receive the king of Denmark. And like I said earlier, all of Europe, constitutional democracies, monarchies, you understand? But when we have our own king, what is the size of Finland? What is the size of Denmark that they have a king who is the head of state? What is the size compared to a place like Sokoto? And then more worrisome was the fact that a group which, any discerning mind, if you read that statement last night by this group, you know that this group was actually speaking on behalf of the Sokoto state government. They accused the Sultan of insubordination. They accused the Sultan of even being a PDP member, which is very strange. Because if you look at Sokoto state, since 1999, Sultan Sa'ad Bakar became the Sultan in 2006. And at the time, Bafara was governor of Sokoto State. At the time, Bafara was a member of the AMPP. Bafara first was in APP, then he went to AMPP. The same Wamako, who is fighting the Sultan, who is using the governor to fight, who here is using the governor to fight the Sultan. Wamako was first elected on the PDP platform. He was governor for 4 years on the PDP platform, then moved to the APC. So if you accuse the Sultan of being a PDP supporter, I wonder how that places in Tambuwal, who the immediate past governor, Tambuwal first was in PDP, then he moved to APC and then turned to PDP. So I think it's giving a dog a bad name in order to hang it. And then yes.
Just on this matter, to say that the Sokoto state government has reacted to Murik's claims about the dethronement or alleged dethronement of the Sultan of Sokoto, Sa'ad Abubakar III, and they are asking the body to remain apolitical and say the allegations are baseless. We also know that Murik's claims are coming from the fact that the Sokoto government had earlier in the year dethroned 15 emirs in the state. So it's a lot of back and forth there, but other stories making the front pages this morning. Let's go for a quick break. When we return, we'll move to the foreign scene. Thank you. Stay with us. Thanks, Mr. Go ahead.
Glad to have you back. You're still watching Daybreak, the paper review. Let's look at first before the papers. We'll have some interesting stories there. From Farage to Trump, giants of the right are abandoning patriotism. Boris blames EU for war in Ukraine. The paper, then they have the headline story. We have the paper there. Tories and Labour refuse to rule out. Looks like we don't have paper, so we'll probably go to some other paper. There, let's look at some other paper. Let's look at, do we have the Sun? The Sun. All right. the same thing that I was trying to talk about. Rishi versus Care at SAN headquarters, boats war. PM migrant coups at Calais in Labour getting stammer there. We will crush gangs behind trafficking. There is apparently a, well, political war. The election is just around the corner. But there is talk about both sides, you know, not coming out to say what they're going to do with taxes. Both sides are being accused of, increasing taxes when they get on board. A chief correspondent, Cookson, this morning was talking about that. What do you make of this issue of both sides, you know? And then he talked about the fact that Labour has about 40% and Rishi Tories have about 20%. So it's going to be something like a landslide for Labour when the election goes on the 4th. Chooks.
Yes, it's very interesting. You see, like for some of us who are in this part of the world, you see the issues that shape elections in the Western world. You see, it's very different from issues that we grapple with here. The UK elections are at hand, and each party is accusing the other of condoning or not condoning illegal migration. Because there are those who feel that they're UK residents who feel, the citizens who feel that, okay, that migrants are actually flooding the country and taking over their jobs, that they're paying taxes to support migrants. And then what happens, should be of concern to them because, this part of the world, they don't play with taxes. They're very, very mindful of how their money is spent and what issues are going to dominate the government, any party, be it Conservatives or the Labour Party that eventually wins and forms the next government, which is, of course, is around the corner. So it's very interesting how this is going to play out. You see, they came to the Sun Summit and they're attacking each other, Rishi and his opponent. And but it's very interesting because a lot of people feel that the UK elections this time around is going to be very, very interesting because for some time, some of the issues that are dominating today were never the issues before. But now we've seen a lot of issues concerning migration, about migrants flooding to the UK, for better jobs. People from Far East, people from Asia, people from Africa, and the rest. And then how much the country is spending to actually cater for these migrants. That's one of the issues.
The issue facing that election that voters will have to put into consideration is low wage growth. That's making the front page of The Guardian UK this morning. It says low wage growth has pushed 900,000 children into poverty. Average weekly wages now just £16 higher in real terms than 2010. Another story there, Princess Anne in hospital with a head injury after an incident with a horse. But the story I wanted to focus on quickly is gunmen attacks in Dagestan, leaving 19 dead. Russia has said it has eliminated 5 suspects in 2 cities. The Russian authorities are designating this assault as an act of terror, and correspondents are saying this assault puts a spotlight on the challenges that Russia has been facing as that war in Ukraine is taxing its economy and also its security apparatus, Mr. Akunna.
Yes, talking about Russia, you see the war, no doubt. You see, there's no country that goes to fight a war that does not become boggled down with deaths and other challenges. You see, I think the war in Ukraine has become a war of attrition. You see, on the one side is Russia, and on the other side is the EU, NATO principally. And then, as we speak, Russia has its own internal challenges. We have separatists in Russia who feel that they should be part of Russia. So Russia is fighting, it's multi-pronged war, and the West, no doubt, is enjoying that. You see, because anything that will hurt the interest of Russia, is welcome, because they feel that, and Russia too is also deploying its own strategy, because you see, Russia is one of the leading countries in terms of natural gas, and has seized the supply of natural gas to several European Union nations that are backing Ukraine. And we also see some of those nations, Germany, France, and also retaliating in their own way and supporting Ukraine. But then, like we say, it's going to be an ill wind that's going to blow nobody any good. And, as long as they continue this war in Ukraine, problems will persist, both in Russia and the West.
Chuk Sekuna, Executive Director, Authority Newspaper, thank you so much for the analysis this morning. We do appreciate your time here with us on Daybreak. And that's where we'll call it a wrap for today, this Tuesday morning on Daybreak here in our Abuja studios. Thank you so much for watching. Up next is The Morning Show. I am Adesua Omorwan. Good morning.